The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Everybody, and welcome to Triversity Talk. I'm so happy to have you here with me on Wednesday night. I feel like it's like a date night, right? 7 o'clock every Wednesday. Be there or be square. So tonight, we are keeping things local at Triversity Talk. As you know, Triversity Talk was named after our LGBTQ organization based out of Milford, Pennsylvania. And although now this show broadcasts all over the country, it really did start in Milford. And we have some incredibly dynamic people that are doing everything they can to make a difference. Our guest tonight is somebody I've wanted to have on for a long time. She is a board member of Triversity. She has a voice, and now she's using it to help the most marginalized people in her community. As a regional organizer, Northeast Pennsylvania for Red, Wine, and Blue. I just love that, Red, Wine, and Blue, and she's going to be talking to us about that. She's become an active organizer in the pushback against banned books and extremist voices at school board meetings. She's also going to share with us her role as mom. This woman does everything. I don't know how she does it. Her role as mom and why using her voice on social media is no longer enough. So please give a big welcome to Amanda Pauley.
Hi, Wendy.
And there you are.
How are you?
I'm great, Amanda. Thank you for coming on the show tonight. So excited to have you here. I have so many things I want to talk about with you. And first of all, thank you for being a board member of Triversity and for everything that you've been doing. Your plate has been very, very full with activism lately. What kinds of local things have been going on, and how have you got involved with them?
So locally, we just had our primary yesterday. Electoral work. I have been doing a little behind the scenes there, organizing for school board candidates and some magistrate candidates I shared values with. And then I have been doing a lot of work at the center involving HB 300, which is the Pennsylvania Fairness Act, that we hope to pass. It will be the first time in 22 years in Pennsylvania that we can finally have some protections for LGBTQ plus community against discrimination. So I'm really excited about that, and I feel really positive about that. And we have a great team on the board that is helping me and working hard on that as well.
Oh, no, we do. We have an incredible team at Triversity. Can you elaborate a little bit about these protections for LGBTQ people, how this bill came about? I have to tell you, when I read about it, I was very surprised because, and so do a lot of people we know, there's been so much pushback in Pennsylvania. So how did this come to be? And fingers crossed that this bill gets passed.
Fingers crossed. I know that our vice president took a activism call today. So I didn't get a chance. It was right before you, so I didn't get a chance to follow up with him about the work that we're going to do to kind of work together with other nonprofit organizations to get this through in Harrisburg. I do know that what we don't have now is anti-discrimination laws that protect our LGBTQ plus community specifically. So that's why we are really pushing for this. And we feel really positive about this. So putting pressure on our senators now. I call every day. My alarm is set at 9:30. I call every day my local senators just to remind them I want them to support this. And I send them an email.
They're like, oh my gosh, it's Amanda Pauly on the phone. Tell her I'm busy.
Yeah, they should know who we are. They should be held accountable, and we're their constituents. And our voices is our power. So I definitely want to make sure they hear mine a lot of times.
Right. It's amazing to me because you're really taking it down to a personal level, right? They should be taking our calls. And what you're talking about is really the power is in the hands of the voters in many, many ways. And you're a constant reminder, I'm sure, if you're calling all the time, that they have to acknowledge the people. That at the end of the day, we're the people that go in, we vote, we make the change. Were you happy with the turnout of the elections in Pike County with school board and magistrate? We had a few different categories. How do you feel about how things turned out?
I feel really happy with the way things turned out. I know that we had some really extreme candidates on the ballot.
We do, yeah.
And they on our primary ballot, and we were able to keep a large majority of them off our primary ballot, or our general ballot as we move into November, which is really good news for us. We were able to keep the two candidates we really were hoping to get for our school board onto the general. We still have a long we're going to have a long road ahead, and we're going to need to mobilize more. But overall, I'm really happy. I'm really happy with the turnout we had. I'm really happy. Now we need to look and see who else do we need to reach, and how can we get them engaged in the work that we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And you and everyone who worked with you really should be applauded for their efforts, because I know you never let up. And really, that is what it takes. I look at Milford, or I look at Pike County, as it's not just a place in Pennsylvania. To me, it's reflective of what's going on in so many areas all over the country. But, big win for you guys that you're out there and spreading what you know and spreading the truth. And hopefully that will result in things going the way that they need to do, so that we have equality and fairness for everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, so when, little Amanda, were you this kid that, if your parents told you to do something, you asked them why? Were you that kid?
I was raised, you guys would have I was raised in a really conservative home, and my parents are still extremely conservative. And I was raised in a Italian Catholic conservative home too.
Conservative. Did you go to Catholic school too?
I did, yeah, for a little while. And
what did they do with you in Catholic school?
I know. And it really wasn't until I think that I always was, and like too, I went to college in Manhattan. So it was 9/11. I still felt very Republican.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And I did, and it was Hurricane Katrina for me, and seeing that devastation there, and just seeing the lack of care for Black and brown people. And that to me, that's when I started to really be like, is this? And the way our leadership just talked about them, and
well, they were the them, it's the them, right. It's the they, it's they're out there. And as long as it's not affecting me, it's over there. There's a lot of that.
And that's when I was like, I don't know if this feels right to me anymore. But I was not really involved in politics at all.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, and yet, since I've known you, it's like, oh yeah, Amanda just jumps, you really jump in and you commit. Now, how have you juggled all of it? You've got three kids on top of this.
Yeah.
How does that affect you and the way you look at what's happening in the world?
Well, my 28-year-old graduated from Delaware Valley in 2013, and she came out lesbian in, I think she was 22. And the way she told me was, me, liberal me, was, Mom, I think something's wrong with me. And that broke my heart, because there was that feeling that something was wrong with her. And it had nothing to do with the way that we treated her, but the way the community the way she felt in the community.
As a mother, right? When you hear that something's wrong with me, like you do a double take. You're like, well, wait a minute, and there's something very wrong that the community made her feel that way. Because let's go back to 2013. We can talk about what was going on in the country then. It was, as we say, the calm before the storm. Yeah. And it was before everything hit the fan. And yet she felt that way back in 2013, and things were very different. Not that they were perfect, but they certainly were not charged up the way they are now. You didn't have an agenda making LGBTQ kids feel less than. Yeah, there was bullying and all of that, but you didn't have school boards being infiltrated. There was always a little of it, but nothing like what we're seeing now. And nothing like nationwide basic human rights being taken away. I can't believe what I'm seeing, but we all have to sit back and say, yes, this is believable and this is happening and this is not okay. We got to push back. So do you think your own child was intrinsic in your realization of what was going on?
She was my realization in that, that it was happening here, because I grew up on Staten Island, and it was so diverse. So I didn't see a lot of the things that we saw here, like separation and a lot of the stuff that happens in rural communities I didn't see and wasn't familiar with, and I didn't want to be part of. Like, I wanted to be a dance mom and a soccer mom, and like I wanted to just keep my head down and do those things. And it was until I saw that she felt like in our community she had to hide who she was, that I knew that I wanted better for not only my own child, but for like other children.
Absolutely.
And then as we headed into 2016, my good friend, who will probably watch this, was so scared. And I was like, what are you scared of? When you're from the, like, we see guys like Trump all the time. Like, I'm not falling for it. Right. So
when you come from an urban area, if you come from New York or a major city, right, you have diversity, you have all different political views, and it's all good. It's all okay. You don't hear the crazy.
Yeah.
It was around 2016, crazy started to explode. And by the way, you had mentioned, earlier Republican, right? My mom was a Republican. I grew up with a very left Democratic dad and a very right-wing Republican mom. But there is nothing in my mom that would have ever had her endorse the hate and the polarization that happened during his administration. I didn't know those type of Republicans. And what's happened, and I talk about this all the time, that word or that party is just a completely different thing now. So they're using, right? We heard that terminology, fake news. Well, now it's a fake name. Republicanism, what they're calling, that's fake, because it's not. It's a whole other agenda. But again, with fake news, or if you tell people that the color orange is really purple, if you pound people over the head enough with it, they'll start to believe it. And I think what you're seeing now in this country, the insanity, has got a lot to do with that. People have lost their ability to, you want to slap them half the time and say, wait a minute, no matter what party you're on, listen to what you're listening to. You're being told we're getting rid of Black history. You're being told you can't say the word gay. And then there's a whole list of things connected with it. blasphemous things, and yet people that should be questioning it aren't. So that brings people like you to the foreground who say, hey, this is not okay.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the work that we do at Red Wine and Blue is to connect women like me. Like, we're not always politically engaged, and we don't know how to get started, and we don't know, but we have a voice, and we're angry, and we know. What I find a lot is that we don't get started because we don't know how,
You
or
can't get organized.
or we think someone else is doing it. Like, why isn't I remember being like, why isn't anyone saying anything? And then like realizing I'm the one that has to say the things. I'm the one who has to like go to the school board and say the things I want them to hear. There's no one else that's going to do this for me. I have to be the one that does it. So once I was able to get involved with Red Wine and Blue, they were the first group, I think, that made me feel like not alone in this culture war that we were seeing.
And how did you, first of all, until you had mentioned Red Wine and Blue, I sometimes say, people say to me, you seem to know everything. I know a lot of stuff. I had no idea who they were. And you were the person that turned me on to who they were. And then, of course, I Googled and I'm like, oh my God, this is like incredible that this is happening. But how did you first find out about Red Wine and Blue?
I'm involved with a local action group called Delaware Valley Action. And yes, I love them. And the director of DVA sent me an article and said, because he could see me being so vocal behind my keyboard, and he sent me an article and he said, look at these women. And it was Red Wine and Blue. It was our founders and now my bosses. And I immediately like looked up, like, these people are doing exactly what we need to do here. And we offer training courses, like we call them troublemaker trainings. And that night they had a troublemaker training. And me and a friend took it. And the next day we started our Facebook group. And it was like 5 of us. And it grew to be 125 of us. And we continued to learn. And it was the only way I knew how to organize was a way that I learned through Red Wine and Blue. And then in the meantime, when I was organizing, I met people doing electoral work, like our vice president, John Hellman, who has been a giant inspiration to me, and Taylor James. And we were able to form this this giant community of
powerful giant community where each one of you, like I've known John. I knew Taylor from way before. I didn't know what Taylor's opinion was on anything. He's our executive director now. John, I knew, I had met, but I watched all of you suddenly mobilize, and it was really quite an incredible thing, because that is what it takes. It takes, and you know this, the like-minded all coming together and moving out from there.
Yeah. And then when we saw what we were capable of doing together, and then like, we're so much fun, right? Like, we're so much fun. So we were having fun and we were doing really hard things. And we have this community to vent to and to lean on and to rely on. It made this work a lot easier and a lot more rewarding.
Right. Well, because you're all like-minded. I would like to know, and I'm sure our audience would as well, the history of Red Wine and Blue, when they formed, who were the key players initially, and where they are at now, if you can elaborate on them.
Sure. Our founder is Katie Paris. She started the group in 2018. And the same, like, that's where the wine came in, was like over wine, organizing with friends. And then Mitch McConnell had made a really crappy comment about that we have a suburban women problem. And that's when we were like,
Okay.
Suburban women problem then. And we're located now in actually 5 states now. We just have hired our new state director for Virginia. She
Fabulous.
started today. So we focused on swing states when Roe was overturned.
Okay.
That's when I was hired on in August. And this was to mobilize women, trans women, and non-binary people. That is our lane in this work. So men are always welcome, but where we want to get out the vote is women just like me, who are not politically engaged, who kind of don't really know what's going on, but they know they want to do something, but they don't know how. And we teach them how. So we're in Michigan, Ohio, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and now Virginia. So
wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to them. And you brought up a good point. There's so many people that want to do something and they don't know how. And unless you come across, you were very lucky that the person from Delaware Valley Action, Ed, turned you on to this group, which they were out of DC at that point, right?
They were doing this work in Ohio, but their article was in the Washington Post.
Washington Post.
And he sent it to me, and then I Googled everything I could. I saw they had a Facebook page in Pennsylvania. I joined them. I got to be my state director now. My boss was like my coach through organizing. And I will always credit Red, Wine, and Blue for saving our community, like helping us get started and giving us the resources we needed to organize against cookbans. They were doing this work already. So it was good to not have to make our own playbook. We had one for us.
But the fact that they formed in 2018, and from what you're telling me, they're very grassroots.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've seen this work, right? Two people have an idea. They don't have an MBA. They don't have a master's degree, but they have a passion and they have a determination and they have a goal. All right. And they meet with like-minded people. And I mean, look at this right now. This is really, really incredible. The states that you formed in that are swing states, and what will happen from your mobilization is for the women that are out there that really want to be able to do something. You know, it's easy for all of us to get behind our keyboards. We see this all the time with these Facebook groups. And as you have, I've read horrible things. I cannot even believe that people have the audacity to write such vile, hateful things. Even, you know, our organization, Triversity, people that go on there and I see, I will never engage with them. All right. Because I imagine what that person looks like that wrote that, and say to myself, you are a horrific, uneducated human being. And thank God I've been able to get through most of my life, not even speaking to someone like you. I don't want to talk to someone like you. I don't even want to change your mind. I just want you to go away. But what we've seen through social media and what we've seen through the last administration is those people were empowered. And now we are watching it. You know, we're getting close to our election, and you're going to see they're going to crawl out of the woodwork again. And I think what I don't like is, you know, like what's going on in the state of Florida. Somebody should just like slap him. Take.
I can't
just like,
take it. Yeah.
don't even put him. My whole thing has been, don't even put them on TV. Don't give them media coverage. Don't do anything.
Yeah.
You know, why are we giving these people media coverage?
We're giving oxygen to a fire that's already burning. And they don't care if the media is good or bad. They just want it all. And then their base just feeds off of it. And it's more hate out there. It's so hard to control.
It's so hard to control, but you know, we always, right, we point the finger at Fox because they are the most outrageous. But I'm a person that was a big watcher of CNN, MSNBC, and I find that when I turn off the sound, I've done this, and watch what was happening on the screen, I want to say, what the heck is wrong with you? Why are you sensationalizing everything? Why can't we just get, like, your organization, Red, Wine, and Blue? It's basic. It's got a basic premise. It's people trying to do this thing. Why can we not have our media be the same way? Why does everything have to be sensationalized? With the way the newscasters, their voices go up and down, or the music, 6 o'clock news, it's all for shock value. And that has not gotten us very far, I feel. And nobody is getting ahead because of it.
No.
We need to all have some place that we can totally go to get news. I love that you're involved with this organization, and I love what they're doing. I would say they have their work cut out for them now my God, before the election.
We just launched a new campaign called Freedom to Parent 21st Century Kids. And I have goosebumps talking about it because I am so excited for this, because this is how we are going to fight back. We are going to have one place for us all to get information. Like if you logged on to redwine.blue now and found Freedom to Parent in our search, you will see resources to all your ask questions. Like, what is a parent's choice agenda? Like this, everything is here for us now. We're having round tables with real guests and real moms that we can learn things from, because that's how we learned. Like when Kansas won, we were like, how did they do it? Let's get them on. Let's talk to them and learn. And we did. And that's how we're getting better. And I have 5 counties, but I'll never turn anyone in Pennsylvania away. My boss knows that. So I have like little grassroots groups just organizing and doing the work and women winning elections.
Yes.
In local, who have never even went to a school board meeting before, now are running in campaigns. So seeing what we have done already on local level, because we all agree on so much more than we don't when it comes to local issues. So if we can connect there and we can start having uncomfortable conversations, local issues, it gets easier to talk about the top part of the ballot.
Well, and it starts with the local, right? And then it expands into the national. And that's what people have to realize. You know what's happened, Amanda? We see people that just feel, I talk to people all the time. Oh my God, it's such a mess out there. I don't even know where to start. I don't feel there's anything I can do. Now the school board is trying to take away books that I think would be good for my kid, and they're saying no. And then that parent will go to a school board meeting, and there'll be extreme people at that meeting that will say, oh my God, stuff that really, I watch the school board meetings on YouTube, and I'm like, damn, I wish I had the time to edit this into a documentary. I'm not kidding you. It would be such an incredible film, and it would be indicative of a lot of the school board meetings all over the country. But the stuff people say, the insensitivity, the lack of knowledge, and then of course throwing religion into it. We're talking about public school, and they are trying to take down public education.
Yeah. And this is where a lot of where it bothers me the most. And I have a 17-year-old as well. And he was at the center today hanging out. And my son is a straight white kid, and they know what's going on. People think like they don't care or they don't know. So when you're at a school board meeting, not you, but like when these extremists are at a school board meeting and they are saying horrific stuff about the community, his sister is part of or his friends are part of,
Yes.
it is really hurtful and really hard to hear. And especially in rural areas like ours, where we don't have access to good mental health care, and these kids can't go to their parents. Like my daughter came to me years later. They have no safe
good point. You're like a good supportive mom, and your daughter came to you years later. She carried these negative feelings around with her. You have to think how many kids out there is this happening to.
I lose sleep about it, Wendy. Ask, like Taylor knows, like I lose sleep over the lack of access to care we have,
Right.
and the amount of kids who don't feel safe, and where will they go?
Right.
That is all. I meet moms every day that are dealing with issues in their schools, and I help them to find resources. That's a lot of what we do at Red Wine and Blue too, is steer people to resources that can help them if we can. And they will the amount of help we need in this state is the reason why I will continue to always do what I do. And when you're working with a mom of a trans kid who is young, or a high school trans kid, they don't in rural areas, they cannot use their voice because they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe for themselves or for their child. And to be able to be their voice for them has been nothing but an honor. And I hope that I am able to give it justice. And I can never imagine living that way. The first time I ever had to advocate for my child was during COVID. And you know how loud I was, Wendy.
Yes, I remember. I remember, but it was okay. So yeah, we came out of that bad 4 years, and then basically then we went into COVID, right? It's been a real shit show for a long time now. And you brought up a good point. In rural areas, a lot of the kids don't have access to the mental health support or just the support on any level, and they're really kind of hung out to dry. See, I am forever optimistic. What I would like to see, a government that actually put programs, the things we're talking about. And it's amazing you discovered Red Wine and Blue, because they're filling in a huge gap. All right. But I would like to see the government get involved. All right. The same way they set up, the office for the aging, or the office for this, or the office for that, the office for adolescents. Okay. Where the issues for these kids are addressed and they're hooked into resources, hotlines. Are you struggling? Here's a number that you could call. All right. Because even though rural areas, to your point, they're lacking resources, we have the internet now. And the one thing all of us learned during COVID, we were able to connect with people anywhere.
Right.
So why is there not that kind of setup, where a parent can dial in, talk to a counselor, where it's subsidized, have the kid come on and talk to the counselor. We don't have that kind of setup at all. So everybody is feeling very isolated and very alone. Now, the first time you went to a school board meeting, like, what was that like for you? Because I only started hearing all this stuff, I would say in the past, what was it, like the past 2 years, where it really went on fire?
My first school board meeting was after transphobic comments were made by a school board member. It was scary. We pulled up. I had my older daughter with me who had written a letter to read about her experiences at DV. And there were trucks in the parking lot that were, Confederate flags and F Biden. And she didn't end up going inside. I went inside.
Of course. Right.
And it was scary. It was during COVID, so no one was masked because, DV didn't care.
Right. They lost a couple of bus drivers, but, who's counting?
Yeah. And
Oh, but
it was scary, but I had reached out to Triversity and they were always there for
Right.
us when we needed them. And they were there. We had a Title IX expert there from our local community.
and if
And
you know what Title IX is that don't know.
Title IX is federal funding. We schools get for discrimination, inclusivity,
Activity.
and yeah, and it is important that we follow the rules of Title IX to keep our funding. And our school was not doing those things properly.
Clearly
Now
they
they
are.
yeah.
Now they are. What do you think
Like
was pivotal in turning that around?
We had a huge, I think, they didn't know a lot of what to do. So they didn't know they had to have it had to be easily accessible on their website, that students had to access it, that they had to have a Title IX coordinator. They didn't know any of this, which was scary. But now they do, and all of that stuff is available on the website and easy.
Right.
But there are schools, and I have coworkers out near Pittsburgh where they are not going to accept federal funds anymore. So they will be able to discriminate freely.
Okay, but that in itself is this is wow. Wow, that in itself is so how are these schools, how do they plan on running if they're not going to accept federal funds?
So they could raise taxes, or what that will do. And like you said, this in the beginning of our conversation. So when you raise funds, you have to cut programs, which will send parents to charter schools, which defunds public education. So this is all, like you said, part of
the plan. It is part of the plan.
Right. Yeah, and this is something they talked about doing early in 2020 in Florida, and we've seen it from trickle down across the state. And I tell everyone, if it has not happened in your neighborhood, it's going to happen. Especially we know what the agenda is in 2024. It's parents' choice. If it hasn't happened in your school board, it's going to happen, and we need to pay attention. And there's other ways besides going to a school board meeting and reading speeches. There's ways that we can get involved that you can feel more comfortable, because it's all hands on deck now, and these are our kids. So that's why I'm so passionate about this.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a t-shirt, all hands on deck. It's our kids. Yeah. So from your experience, I know you were very vocal at the school board meetings regarding banned books, the bullying, how LGBTQ plus kids were being treated. Do you feel that by being so vocal, and Taylor James also very vocal, John Hellman, and anyone else from our group that jumped in, do you feel it really raised a flag to the people that were the perpetrators of such crazy ways of looking at things? Do you think it made them stop and think about their action, or they just realized they couldn't get away with it anymore?
I think that for our school board, they realized that we knew too much. We have a very conservative school board. We're 8-1, and they're very conservative. And then we had the people who were wanting these books to be banned and making these horrific comments to our trans community. And it was, we got a lot of people together, and we empowered a community when this started to happen. And I think the conservative side of the board that we have on now just didn't want to see this happen in our schools. I do think they would have went with that pushback despite what they're saying. Like, I think that they would have absolutely removed books had we not shown up. I think they can't, like Title IX covers that our kids can use bathrooms. Like, I don't know why this is a thing that we have to talk about, like where kids go to the bathroom. It freaks me
Right,
out.
but if Title IX is not being enacted in the school or it's being ignored, I mean, Title IX was put in place to address those things. But if no one is quote unquote watching the store, and a lot of what I'm getting from you around the country, they're like, the hell with Title IX, ignore it. And the thing that you just told me about, they don't care about federal funding. Oh my God, it's really scary.
Yeah, what we hear at school board meetings from the other side is they don't want federal funding because then we have to follow guidelines, which are
God forbid. I mean,
yeah,
right.
And a lot of these guidelines protect everyone, like kids with special needs as well. So when you're removing the federal funds, it's not just LGBTQ kids that will be hurting. It is the entire community. And what we've learned is that schools that have safer policies for the LGBTQ plus community are safer all around for every student. So to not do those things is clearly a political decision.
It's really mind-boggling that this is happening. But, some of what we've discussed here tonight is really about empowering people, all right, that if you think what's going on out there is crazy, no matter what side of the fence you're on, we're talking about basic human rights. We're talking about empathy, sensitivity, taking LGBTQ rights away and taking away the rights of physically challenged or mentally challenged children. How can anyone put their head on a pillow at night knowing that they're responsible for that?
But so many of us will say that when we're at school board meetings, and I just think like it's me, and I'm so lucky to have the people that we do have that show up. But me and one other person are the only parents of kids in the district there. And I think like, where are you guys? Like, why? I am so insanely busy and there are 1 million things I would rather be doing. And it's hard here in Pike County because when we're organizing in the other counties that I am involved with for Red, Wine, and Blue, I don't sense the same pushback that I sense here.
That's interesting.
Yeah, like where people just don't want to be involved. And we can't blame them because we don't just have groups like Moms for Liberty. We have different groups here that have the same ideals, but are even scarier. So I can't blame them, but at the same time, like we need someone to have our backs. So if like, what else how else can you help? And we've had the community members who donated all those banned books for
it was great. I remember when she called up, she's like, I have a whole bunch of banned books. It's like, great, bring them to Triversity. We have a really good banned book library if anybody wants to read any of them.
And they've been coming in. Like, I went to borrow a book today and it was gone. I was so happy. So like, people are borrowing our books, and that's great news. I think too, like letters to the editor are always such like a huge help here in this area. Letters to the school board just saying like, hey, I'm a parent and this is bad policy. There's so much you can do besides just attending a school board meeting. And I'd love to see more local engagement with that.
Right. Can I ask you in terms of, because now you're bringing up some strategies, and Red Wine and Blue, I'm sure created, right, strategies. What
Yes.
are some of the strategies to get people involved? Maybe they won't go to a school board meeting, but what could you suggest someone could do? All right. Let's say both mom and dad, many parents are overwhelmed, and you're talking about rural areas where both parents are working and still barely making it. I don't have to tell you about even where we are in Pike County, the rents are ridiculous. I
Yeah.
don't understand how families can do it. It's very, very hard for them. So for someone that has very little time, what would you suggest a way of them being able to involve?
So we are big on relational organizing. And it's friend to friend organizing and digital marketing. So share a post.
Yeah.
Share a post with a friend, or like yesterday I said to like my volunteers who are getting out the vote, like, remember who's the last person you texted them in your phone. Like, do they know who the candidates that you're voting? Do they know who you're voting for? Do they know why? Do they know why you have the values that you do? Like, do they understand why this election is so important to you? And that's how we organize with our friends. They're going to listen to us more. And I hear this all the time too, but like, you guys are my friends. There's other people we talk to during the day, whether that person is the cashier at Turkey Hill. Everyone knows I do this, and it's embarrassing to my kids. But I'm like, did you get out and vote today? Do you know who you're voting for? We all have that one person we see all the time, and they're not just someone we talk to about politics, but it's the house is on fire here, and now is a time we do it. And especially from the incident we saw the other day. Like,
What I heard about the incident the other day is an extreme right group that was involved with January 6th put a huge banner up on a mountain where it could clearly be seen coming out of Walmart or anywhere on the 3-lane.
the high
What
school.
what a lot of nerve in the first place. How did you handle that?
So my friend texted me, and we were on our way to watch our boys who are 17 play soccer for the last time on Mother's Day together.
Yeah.
And our plan was to like not have to handle this. Our plan was to like drink mimosas and celebrate our older boys. So she texted me.
Mother's Day, Mother's Day was happening, right?
Yeah. So she texted me the picture. I was 2 minutes away, and she said, "Did you see this?" And then as soon as we got there, like she was like, "I'm texting." We had climbed the mountain prior, but from a different location that we knew was a lot further. I had sent it to Taylor, and the minute I sent it, he was already mobilizing, like, "Come get me. We're going to get it." And then my friend was, she's a avid hiker. She was like, "I'm trying to find out how we can get up there now." And she was looking at it. Her son had one more soccer game to play. I dropped my kids off, picked up Taylor. We climbed the mountain. We took it down because not on our watch.
Thank you for doing that. I mean, it's the fact that it was there in the first place is scary, but also, you guys took a risk. And this is something I think about a lot, how do we voice our opinion without being targets? People are crazy now. They'll do crazy stuff. Again, January 6th was a good indicator to storm the Capitol. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. Right. So a lot of these groups we know will stop at nothing. And, we really I love the work that you do. Continue to do it. And thank you, Red Wine and Blue, for everything that you're doing. Triversity is amazing. And, I guess we can just keep moving it forward. I do this show because these are my opinions, and this is my way of getting what I feel out there, and people listen, and you said it, even if it's just sharing a post, if it's just sharing a comment or a post, we can do something. We all have power to do something. Amanda, we are like down to the wire here. You get to say like one last thing. Oh, by the way, John Hellman said hello. He came in on the comments. Hi, John. What would you like to tell people?
I would like to tell people that when you organize with the people that you like, it is so much fun and so rewarding. And like, come, Wendy, we have so much fun, right?
We do. Yeah. We do. But it's also about getting the job done and having
we get the job done and we do it having so much fun.
Right. And before you go, can you tell us how people can find out more about Red Wine and Blue?
Our website is redwine.blue. And we have tons of menus there. And always, if anyone wants to get involved locally, you can email me at amandapauly@redwine.blue.
Okay, cool. And there's also a Facebook group. Yeah, they can find Red Wine.
Pennsylvania, it's Red Wine and Blue, Pennsylvania.
Amanda, thank you so much. I do one quick thing before my guests leave. And of course, I'm a minute over because I'm always a minute over. I take a picture, say cheese. And one more. And there we go. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for everything that you do. Good night, everybody. We will see you next week.
Good night.